"If I buy all these sweets, will you marry me?" The millionaire joked, but the vendor's answer left him speechless. Before we start the story, leave in the comments which city you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story, everyone. Logan Parker was crossing the street with his hands in his pockets, dodging a group of women wearing pink cowboy hats and bachelorette party sashes. He shouldn't have been there. He had a meeting in 40 minutes, a pile of contracts waiting for signatures, and at least 3 calls he'd been ignoring since lunch. But something about that afternoon made him want to walk. Maybe it was the exhaustion of always being in control. Maybe it was the need to breathe something different from the freezing air conditioning of meeting rooms. Or maybe it was simply stubbornness. Logan was 29 years old, had a fortune that most people couldn't spend in 3 lifetimes, and the annoying certainty that he knew exactly how the world worked. At least that's what he thought. Until he saw that stand. It was small, colorful, and completely out of place among the noisy bars and souvenir shops. A red and white striped awning protected trays organized with handmade sweets that looked like they'd come from a sugary dream. Perfectly decorated cupcakes, generous brownies, cookies in fun shapes, and glass jars filled with colorful candies. But it wasn't the sweets that made Logan stop. It was her. Behind the makeshift counter, a woman with brown hair tied in a messy ponytail was adjusting the prices with the concentration of someone solving a complicated equation. She wore a white apron stained with chocolate and a simple t-shirt. No makeup besides an almost invisible lip gloss, no effort to impress. And yet, Logan couldn't look away. He approached slowly as if entering unknown territory. He stopped in front of the counter and waited. The woman didn't look up. "Just a minute," she said, still focused on the prices. Logan smiled. He was used to being noticed immediately. His presence usually changed the energy of any environment. People straightened up, voices changed tone, smiles appeared out of nowhere. But there, at that simple stand, he was just another customer. 15 seconds passed, then 30. Logan cleared his throat. "Excuse me?" "I said just a minute," she repeated without raising her head. "A minute has 60 seconds. There are still about 20 left." A man nearby let out a muffled laugh. Logan felt his ears getting hot. Finally, she looked up. Brown eyes, lively, with the sparkle of someone who'd already heard every pickup line in the world and wasn't impressed by any of them. "There," she said, opening a professional smile. "What can I get you?" Logan looked at the sweets, then at her, then at the sweets again. His brain, normally so quick for million-dollar negotiations, completely froze. "Did you make all of these?" he asked, buying time. "Every single one. I wake up at 4 in the morning for this." 4 in the morning? Logan frowned. "That's inhumane. It's dedication, but I understand some people don't know the difference." Someone nearby let out a quiet, "Wow." Logan laughed, genuinely surprised. "Are you always like this with customers?" "Only with the ones who stare instead of buying." She crossed her arms and tilted her head, waiting. There was no hostility in the gesture, just limited patience that made it clear. Her time was valuable. Logan looked at the tray of cupcakes, then at the brownies, then at the cookies. An idea came to his mind, an idea that, in hindsight, he should have swallowed along with his pride. "How much does all of this cost?" he asked, spreading his arms to indicate the entire stand. She blinked. "All of it? Everything. Every sweet, every candy, every cookie. How much?" The woman looked at him as if trying to decide whether this was a prank or if he'd hit his head somewhere. "You want to buy my entire stock?" It's a simple question. It's a strange question. But it's a question. She sighed, doing a quick calculation in her head. It would be something around $800, maybe a little more. Logan took his wallet from his pocket with a casual gesture, as if $800 were coffee change, and for him, honestly, it was. Done. Her eyes widened for a second, but she quickly composed herself. "Are you serious?" "I'm always serious when it comes to sweets." "Nobody's serious when it comes to sweets." Logan took a step forward, leaning his elbows on the counter with a smile that had already opened many doors. "Let me rephrase then," he said, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. "If I buy all these sweets, will you marry me?" Silence. For exactly 2 seconds, the world stopped. The tourists around slowed their pace. A passing couple turned their heads. Even the music from the nearest bar seemed to get quieter. And then Haley Brooks did something Logan Parker didn't expect. She laughed. It wasn't a charmed or flattered laugh. It was the laugh of someone who'd just heard the most absurd joke of the year and couldn't believe someone actually had the nerve to say it out loud. "Oh my God," she said, wiping the corner of her eyes. "Does this actually work on anyone?" Logan felt his smile freeze on his face. "What do you mean?" "That pickup line, that strategy, the credit card, the perfume commercial look, the marriage proposal as if it were an irresistible offer. Does this actually work?" Usually," he stammered, something he hadn't done since he was 15. Haley leaned forward, resting her elbows on the counter, mirroring his position with precise irony. "Let me explain something to you, Prince Charming with the fat wallet," she said, each word clear and measured. "Only if you learn that not everything can be solved by buying it." The silence that followed was deafening, and then came the reaction. First, it was the guy in the local football team shirt who let out a loud laugh and slapped his own leg. Then it was the bachelorette party women, who applauded as if they'd just watched the ending of a movie. A teenager in the background shouted, "She got you, man!" While filming with his phone, Logan Parker, the man who negotiated million-dollar contracts without breaking a sweat, who faced boards of directors with the calm of someone ordering coffee, felt his face burn as if he'd touched a frying pan. "I didn't mean," he tried. "You did," Haley interrupted, still smiling. "You wanted to impress, and that's fine. A lot of people do, but you chose the wrong person, in the wrong place, with the wrong strategy." She stepped back from the counter, adjusting her apron as if nothing had happened. "Now, if you actually want to buy something, the walnut brownie is the most popular. If you just want to stand there trying to recover your dignity, that's fine too. But I'm going to need you to move aside, because there's a customer behind you." Logan turned his head mechanically. A man about 70 years old was holding his wallet with an expression that mixed pity and amusement. "Sorry, son," the man said with a drawn-out southern accent. "But this young lady is right. You need to work on your pitch." The laughter returned. Logan stepped away from the counter without knowing exactly what to do with his own hands. He put his wallet in his pocket, opened his mouth to say something, gave up, and finally turned to leave. But before taking 3 steps, Haley's voice reached him. "Hey, Prince." He stopped, turned. She was holding a brownie wrapped in parchment paper. "On the house," she said, tossing the treat toward him, "to make up for the public humiliation." Logan caught the brownie in the air by pure reflex. He looked at the sweet, then at her, and for a moment couldn't form a response. "Thanks, I think. Go in peace, and next time try a hi, my name is," before proposing marriage to someone. Logan nodded slowly, still processing what had just happened. He walked down Broadway with the brownie in his hand and a strange feeling in his chest. It wasn't anger. It wasn't shame, although a little of it was there too. It was something different. It was curiosity. Nobody talked to him that way. Nobody challenged him publicly, dismantled his charm, and still offered a consolation treat with a victorious smile. Haley Brooks had no idea who he was, how much money he had, or how many doors his last name could open, and clearly didn't care. Logan bit into the brownie as he walked. It was, annoyingly, the best brownie he'd ever tasted in his life. "Dedication," he murmured to himself, remembering her words. When he reached his car, parked 2 blocks away, Logan stood still for a moment before getting in. He looked at the Nashville sky, now darker, with the stars beginning to appear. He had meetings, contracts, responsibilities. He had an entire world waiting for his decisions. But for the first time in a long time, the only thought occupying his mind was a simple question. What was her name, anyway? He'd only heard his own heart beating while she spoke. Logan got in the car, started the engine, and stared at the steering wheel. "Tomorrow," he said to the silence. "I'll come back tomorrow." Not for the sweets, for her. Logan Parker spent the entire night rehearsing. Casual phrases in the bathroom mirror, carefree poses while brushing his teeth. He even searched how to seem natural on his phone at 3 a.m, which was, without a doubt, the lowest point of his adult life. Now, standing half a block away from the candy stand, he was sweating as if he were about to present a billion-dollar project. Except billion-dollar projects were easy. That woman wasn't. The midday sun beat down on Broadway. Tourists passed by with giant cups of lemonade, country music fans took photos in front of the historic bars, and Logan Parker, successful executive, was hiding behind a pole trying to gather courage. "You can do this," he murmured to himself. "It's just a conversation. You do this all the time." A child walked by and looked at him strangely. "Mister, are you talking to yourself?" "I'm rehearsing." "Rehearsing what?" "A presentation." The child shrugged and kept walking, clearly having lost faith in adult humanity. Logan took a deep breath and walked toward the stand. This time, he had a plan. No marriage proposals, no million-dollar offers, just a normal conversation between two civilized people. Haley was organizing a new batch of cupcakes when she saw him approaching. She didn't show surprise, just raised an eyebrow and continued working. "Let me guess," she said, without looking directly at him. "You came back to ask for my grandmother's hand this time?" Logan felt his ears getting hot. "Actually, I came to buy a cupcake." "Just one?" "It's an honest start." Haley finally looked at him, her brown eyes shining with contained amusement. "Look at that. Prince Charming learned moderation. Impressive. Could you stop calling me Prince?" "I could, but I won't." She grabbed a chocolate cupcake with caramel frosting and placed it on the counter. $3.50. Logan pulled a $20 bill from his pocket. "Keep the change. Or you could learn to use smaller bills like a normal person." "I don't have smaller bills." "Of course you don't." Haley took the bill, opened a makeshift change box, and started counting coins with deliberate slowness. A quarter. Pause. Another coin. Longer pause. Logan realized what she was doing. "You're kidding. I'm returning your change correctly. This is called commercial honesty. This is called psychological torture." That too. She finally finished counting and pushed the coins toward him with a victorious smile. Logan picked them up, feeling the absurd weight of $16.50 in coins in his pocket. "Happy now?" he asked. "Extremely." Logan bit into the cupcake, more to have something to do than from hunger. It was, once again, annoyingly delicious. "How do you do this?" he asked with his mouth full. "Do what?" "These sweets. They're absurdly good." Haley tilted her head, studying him as if looking for signs of sarcasm. "Are you trying to flatter me?" "I'm being sincere." "Are those different things?" "For some people, yes." She crossed her arms, but the corner of her mouth curved slightly. "My grandmother's recipes, years of practice, and a lot of love for what I do. None of these things can be bought." "I got the hint." "Good, because I'm going to keep making them." Logan finished the cupcake and wiped his fingers on a napkin. He wanted to say something smart, something that would make her really laugh. But before he could formulate any phrase, a male voice came from behind him. "Haley?" They both turned at the same time. A man was approaching the stand. Tall, well-combed brown hair, light blue dress shirt rolled up at the cuffs. He had a friendly smile, but his eyes didn't fully participate in the expression. "Evan," Haley said, and something in her voice changed. It wasn't cold, but it wasn't warm either. "Hi." "Hi," Evan replied, stopping next to Logan without recognizing him. "I came to see how you are. It's been a while since I stopped by here." "I'm fine, working. Always working." Evan laughed softly. "Some things don't change." Logan watched the exchange in silence, trying to decipher the dynamic. There was history there. The kind of history that left residue in the air, even when nobody talked about it. Evan finally noticed his presence and extended his hand with automatic politeness. "Evan Brooks, pleasure." "Logan," he shook his hand briefly. "Pleasure." "Are you a customer?" Evan asked, the tone too casual to be genuine. "Something like that." Haley intervened before the conversation became stranger. "Logan is a frequent customer." Logan turned his head toward her, surprised by the generous description. "Frequent?" he repeated without thinking. "Technically, this is only my second time here." Haley closed her eyes for a second, as if counting to 10. "Thank you for that extremely necessary information." "You're welcome." Evan watched the exchange carefully. The smile was still on his face, but something hardened in his gaze. "Well, I don't want to disrupt business," he said, taking a step back. "I just wanted to check if everything was okay. You know you can count on me for anything, right?" "I know," Haley replied, neutral. "Thank you." "Evan, see you around." He waved to Logan with a polite gesture. "Nice meeting you. Likewise." Evan walked away down Broadway, hands in his pockets, measured steps. Logan waited until he disappeared from sight before turning to Haley. So, no, I didn't even ask anything, but you were going to ask. How do you know? Because you have the face of someone who's about to ask something inconvenient. Logan raised his hands in surrender. All right, I won't ask. Great, but if you want to tell me, I don't. Fair enough. Haley went back to organizing the sweets, but the movements were more abrupt now. Logan realized he'd touched on something sensitive. Sorry, he said genuinely. She stopped, looked at him. For what? I don't know. For anything I might have done wrong in the last 5 minutes. Haley let out a short laugh, the kind of laugh that escapes when someone is trying too hard to be serious. You're weird. I know. That wasn't a compliment. I know that too. She shook her head, but the heavy atmosphere lifted a little. Evan is my ex-boyfriend, she said suddenly, as if pulling the information out all at once was less painful. We broke up 8 months ago. He still shows up from time to time. Logan nodded, without pressing. I see. It's not complicated. It's just past. Everybody has a past. Some more than others. She looked back at the sweets, and Logan understood that the conversation about Evan was over. Same cupcake tomorrow? He asked, trying to lighten the mood. Haley looked up, surprised. You're coming back? I have $16.50 in coins to spend. I need to find a purpose for them. She laughed. This time, for real. You're persistent. So they say. They also say persistence can be annoying. They also say it can be charming. Who says that? Me, right now. I just made it up. Haley rolled her eyes, but the smile remained. Go away, Logan. Is that a yes for tomorrow? That's an I'll think about it. Logan smiled and stepped away from the counter, the coins jingling in his pocket like a ridiculous trophy. He didn't notice that, across the street, Evan Brooks was still there, watching. And on his phone, a search was already underway. Logan Parker, Nashville. 1 week, 7 days. Logan Parker showed up at Haley's stand every afternoon, without exception. On Monday, he bought 3 brownies and dropped them all on the ground while trying to juggle to impress her. On Tuesday, he brought flowers and discovered that Haley was allergic to lilies. On Wednesday, he tried to help carry a box and tripped over his own foot, scattering cupcakes across the sidewalk like confetti from a very sad party. Haley had never laughed so much in her life. You're a walking disaster, she said on Thursday, watching Logan try to clean powdered sugar off his own shirt. How do you manage to be successful at anything? I ask myself that every day. And what's the answer? Luck. Lots of luck. And a good accountant. Haley shook her head, but the smile she was trying to hide no longer obeyed. The days began to take on their own rhythm. Logan showed up around 2 in the afternoon, always with a different excuse. He needed a snack. He was passing by. He wanted to try a new flavor. The excuses were so bad that Haley stopped questioning them. You know you don't need to make up reasons, right? She said on Friday, while packing an order for a customer. What do you mean? To come here. You can simply admit that you enjoy my company. Logan opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. For the first time, he didn't have a quick answer. Haley smiled, victorious. I finally left you speechless. That was a low blow. That was honesty. You should try it sometime. The weekend arrived, and Logan showed up Saturday morning, 3 hours before his usual time. Haley was setting up the stand alone, struggling with the awning that insisted on not cooperating. Need help? He asked, already rolling up his sleeves. You? Help me? Haley looked at him suspiciously. The last time you tried to help, I lost 12 cupcakes and almost my sanity. This time will be different. You said that before dropping the box. I was nervous. Nervous about what? Logan hesitated. The honest answer was, because you make me nervous. But he wasn't ready to admit that out loud. The sun was in my eye, he said, pointing vaguely at the sky. At 2 in the afternoon, with the sun behind you. It was a reflection. From what? From a window. There was no window. Then it was a rare atmospheric phenomenon. Haley dropped the awning and crossed her arms. You're the worst liar I've ever met. Thank you? That wasn't a compliment. I know, but I'll take it anyway. She rolled her eyes but let him help. To both their surprise, Logan managed to set up the awning without destroying anything. It was a little crooked, but functional. Look at that, he said, proud. I did it. It's leaning to the left. It's charmingly asymmetrical. It's crooked. It's a matter of perspective. Haley laughed and for the first time didn't try to hide it. Across the street, sitting on a bench with a coffee that had gone cold long ago, Evan Brooks was watching. He'd passed by there 4 times that week. Always from a distance, always in silence. The search he'd done on Logan Parker had revealed more than he expected. Heir to one of Nashville's largest technology companies, estimated wealth in the hundreds of millions. Participation in boards of directors, charity events, and exclusive parties. Evan squeezed the coffee cup hard. What did a man of that caliber want with Haley? She didn't belong to that world. She didn't deserve to be used as a pastime for a bored millionaire. At least that's what he told himself. At the Parker Technologies office, the atmosphere was different. Brad Sterling, Chief Operating Officer and second in the company hierarchy, looked at the reports with a deep wrinkle on his forehead. Logan had missed 3 important meetings in the last week. He'd left early twice, and in the only meeting he attended, he spent half the time looking at his phone with a distracted smile. What's going on with him? Brad murmured to himself. He'd known Logan for 5 years. They'd worked together, competed together, and Brad had always been one step behind. Logan was younger, more charismatic, and annoyingly more competent. The company was his by birthright, but Brad believed he deserved more. And now, for the first time, Logan seemed vulnerable. Brad smiled. Back on Broadway, Saturday was going strong. Haley's stand was busy, and Logan had become a sort of unofficial assistant. He packed orders, gave wrong change, and confused flavors with impressive consistency. "Miss, he gave me a chocolate brownie when I asked for vanilla," a customer complained. "Sorry," Haley said, switching the order. "He's still in training." "Training?" Logan protested. "I have a business degree, and yet you don't know the difference between chocolate and vanilla. They're very similar. One is brown, the other is white. Emotional color blindness." The customer laughed and left satisfied. Haley turned to Logan with an expression of fake severity. "You're fired. You didn't even hire me." "Exactly. So technically you're fired from a job you never had. Is that legal?" "I'll consult my imaginary lawyer and let you know." Logan smiled. That kind of conversation had become natural between them. Without effort, without pretension. Just 2 strangers who, little by little, were ceasing to be strangers. The sun began to set, painting the Nashville sky with shades of orange and pink. Haley closed the stand early, and Logan helped put everything away without causing any disasters. "Progress," she said, amazed. "I told you I'd get better." "You improved from catastrophe to just inconvenient. It's a promotion. It's a start." They stood in silence for a moment, looking at the busy street. Logan wanted to say something, but didn't know exactly what. Haley seemed to be thinking the same thing. "See you Monday?" he asked finally. "See you Monday," she confirmed. Logan walked away with his hands in his pockets, feeling something strange in his chest. It wasn't anxiety. It wasn't nervousness. It was something lighter, warmer. He didn't notice that his phone had 3 missed calls from Brad Sterling. And 2 blocks away, Evan Brooks was typing a message that would change everything. "Brad Sterling? My name is Evan. I think we have interests in common." Brad Sterling read the message 3 times before responding. Interests in common was a phrase he knew well. In the business world, it meant opportunity, and Brad never let an opportunity pass. The meeting happened at a discreet coffee shop on the east side of Nashville, away from the curious eyes of Broadway and the business district. Evan arrived first, nervous, adjusting his shirt collar every 30 seconds. Brad arrived 5 minutes late on purpose, because punctuality was for people who had no power. "Evan Brooks?" Brad extended his hand with a calculated smile. "That's me. Thanks for accepting the meeting." "Your message was intriguing." Brad sat down and crossed his legs. "What exactly do you know about Logan Parker?" Evan took a deep breath. "I know he's distracted. I know he's missing meetings. And I know the reason." Brad tilted his head, interested. "Go on." "A woman, candy vendor on Broadway, my ex-girlfriend." Brad's smile widened. "That's fascinating." At Parker Technologies, Monday started with an unpleasant surprise. Logan entered the office at 9 in the morning, something rare for someone who usually arrived at 7. His assistant, Clara, intercepted him before he reached his office. "Mr. Parker, Mr. Sterling scheduled an emergency meeting for 9:15. Emergency? What emergency? He didn't specify, just said it was urgent. Logan frowned. Brad loved to create drama where there wasn't any, but emergency meetings weren't his usual style. All right, I'm on my way. The meeting room was full. Directors, managers, analysts, all with serious expressions and folders in hand. Brad was standing at the head of the table, projecting charts on the screen. Logan, he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Good that you could join us. I work here, Brad. It's kind of hard not to show up. Some muffled laughter. Brad ignored it. We were reviewing last quarter's numbers. There are some inconsistencies that need immediate attention. Inconsistencies? Logan sat down, confused. The reports I saw were perfect. Maybe you saw the wrong reports. Brad's tone was smooth, but the implication was clear. Logan wasn't paying attention. The meeting lasted 2 hours. 2 hours of questionable numbers, directed questions, and subtle looks that made Logan seem inattentive. When it finally ended, he left with a throbbing headache and the uncomfortable feeling that something was wrong. What was that? He murmured to himself in the hallway. Seemed like an ambush, Clara said quietly as she passed him. Logan didn't respond, but agreed. On Broadway, Haley was setting up the stand with her usual efficiency. The sun was already heating the sidewalk, and the first tourists were starting to circulate. At 2 in the afternoon, Logan didn't show up. At 3, he didn't either. At 4, Haley picked up her phone and looked at the empty screen. No messages, no calls. He must be busy, she said to herself, going back to organizing the cupcakes. Who must be busy? Haley turned and found Evan smiling from the other side of the counter. Nobody, just thinking out loud. You do that a lot lately. Evan approached, hands in his pockets in a casual pose. Is everything okay? It is. Why wouldn't it be? I don't know, you seem distracted. Haley crossed her arms. Evan, what are you doing here? Stopping by to say hi as a friend. We're not friends. We were. We can be again. We were dating. It's different. Evan sighed, as if carrying an enormous weight. I know I made mistakes, Haley. I know I was absent, that I didn't value what we had. But I've changed. People don't change in 8 months. Some do. Haley looked at him for a long moment. Evan was handsome, polite, and knew exactly what to say. He was also manipulative, insecure, and incapable of accepting that not everything revolved around him. I appreciate the visit, she said finally, but I have work to do. Evan nodded, taking a step back. All right, I just want you to know I'm here, for whatever you need. He walked away slowly, and Haley went back to work with more force than necessary. Logan showed up at 5:30, out of breath and visibly stressed. Sorry, he said, before even reaching the counter. The day was crazy. I noticed. Are you mad? I'm working. Is that a yes? Haley stopped organizing the sweets and looked at him. I'm not mad, I'm curious. Curious about what? About what exactly you do that keeps you so busy. Logan hesitated. He still hadn't told her about the company, about the money, about who he really was. At first it was because he wanted her to know him without labels. Now it was because he was afraid of how she would react. I work with administration, he said vaguely. Administration of what? Of things. Things. Projects, companies, that kind of thing. Haley crossed her arms. You're very specific. It's a natural gift. She didn't laugh. Logan realized he was losing ground. Look, he said, approaching the counter. I know I'm being vague, but it's not because I'm hiding something bad. It's just that it's complicated. Complicated how? Complicated in the sense that I'd rather you know me before knowing the rest. Haley studied his face for a moment. There was sincerity there, but there was also something he wasn't saying. All right, she said finally. I can wait. Really? Really? But not forever. Logan let out a sigh of relief. Fair. Very fair. The atmosphere lightened a bit, and they spent the next hour talking about light things. Favorite songs, terrible movies they secretly loved. Childhood stories that made each other laugh. When Haley started closing the stand, Logan helped without dropping anything. Progress, she observed. I practice at home. You practice closing stands? I practice not being a disaster. And how's it going? Clearly well, because you still haven't banned me. She laughed, and Logan felt his chest warm up. Tomorrow I'll arrive earlier, he promised. I'll hold you to it. I know. He walked away with a smile, but the phone in his pocket was already buzzing with another message from Brad. Meeting tomorrow at 7. No delays. Logan looked at the screen and sighed. At the same moment, Haley was putting away the last item from the stand when a question came to mind. Why would someone who worked with administration of things wear watches that were obviously very expensive? Logan's watch was very expensive. Haley was sure of it. She spent the entire night searching on her phone, comparing photos and prices, feeling a mixture of curiosity and discomfort. Administration of things. That's what he had said. But people who administered things didn't wear accessories that were worth a teacher's annual salary. The next morning, Haley decided she wouldn't confront him. Not yet, but she would observe. Logan showed up at 2 in the afternoon, punctual for the first time in days. He brought a tired smile and dark circles that coffee clearly hadn't fixed. "You look terrible," Haley said as a greeting. "Thanks. It's exactly what every man wants to hear." "Would you prefer I lie?" "I'd prefer you give me a brownie and pretend I look like a magazine model." "I can give you the brownie. The lie will cost extra." Logan laughed, but the sound came out weaker than normal. Haley noticed. "Rough night?" she asked, wrapping the brownie. "Rough week. I had a meeting at 7 in the morning that drained my will to live." 7 in the morning? That's inhumane. It's corporate strategy. The earlier, the less chance of resistance. It sounds like torture disguised as productivity. That's exactly what it is. Haley handed over the brownie and watched as he bit into it with an expression of genuine relief. "What exactly is happening at your work?" she asked, trying to sound casual. Logan choked slightly. "At my work?" "Yeah, you said you work with administration. But every time you mention it, it seems like you're carrying the weight of the world." "It's just normal pressure. Meetings, deadlines, difficult people." "Difficult people like who?" "Like coworkers." "Coworkers. Yeah. You're being very specific again." "It's my natural charm." Haley crossed her arms but let the subject die. For now. Logan stayed for another hour, helping to pack orders and getting in the way more than helping. When his phone rang for the third time in 10 minutes, he sighed. "I need to go handle something," he said, putting away the device, "but I'll be back before you close." "Promise?" "Promise." He walked away in a hurry and Haley went back to work. Half an hour later, Evan showed up. "Busy day?" he asked, approaching the counter with a friendly smile. "As always." "I've seen you've had frequent company." Haley stopped packing an order and looked at him. "Are you watching me?" "I'm passing by on the street. Nashville isn't that big." "It's big enough for you to choose other routes." Evan raised his hands in surrender. "I'm not here to create problems. I'm just worried." "Worried about what?" "About you." He moved closer, lowering his voice. "This guy, Logan. Do you know anything about him?" "I know enough." "Do you really? Do you know what he does, where he comes from, why he appeared out of nowhere in your life?" Haley felt a tightness in her stomach but kept her expression neutral. "That's none of your business, Evan." "I know it's not. But I've seen this kind of situation before. Men who show up, charm, and then disappear when reality gets inconvenient." "You're describing yourself?" The blow hit dead on. Evan stepped back, his smile wavering. "I deserve that," he admitted, "but it doesn't change the fact that you should be careful. Different worlds rarely mix without consequences." He walked away before Haley could respond, leaving the words hanging in the air like smoke. An hour passed. The sun began to set, and Haley was already closing when Logan reappeared, visibly more stressed than before. "I'm back," he announced, out of breath. "You took a while." The thing became things, plural. It always does. He approached the counter, and Haley noticed the tension in his shoulders. "Logan," she said, stopping what she was doing. "Can I ask you a question?" "Sure. Why do you come here?" He blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" "You show up every day. You buy sweets you clearly don't need. You spend hours talking to me when you could be anywhere else. Why?" Logan looked at her for a long moment. The question was simple, but the answer wasn't. "Because here I feel normal," he said finally. "Without expectations, without pressure, without people wanting something from me. Just you and me, and conversations that don't need to mean anything beyond what they are." Haley felt her heart tighten. "And what exactly are they?" "I don't know yet, but I want to find out." The moment was interrupted by Logan's phone ringing. He looked at the screen and sighed. "I need to answer." "Again." "Go ahead." He stepped away a few paces and Haley pretended to organize the sweets while hearing fragments of the conversation. Brad, I already told you that. No, that's not what we agreed. The board? What board meeting? Logan's voice rose in tone and Haley realized he was genuinely nervous. Look, I'll handle this. Just give me until tomorrow. Pause. Yes, I know the importance. You don't need to remind me who I am. Who I am. The phrase stuck in Haley's mind like a hook. Logan hung up and returned to the counter, his face tense. Sorry, work emergency. Seems serious. It's just office politics. Office politics that involve boards? Logan hesitated. It's a big company. Big how? Big enough to have boards. Haley nodded slowly, storing the information. Do you need to go? She asked. Probably. He looked at her with an almost pleading expression. But we'll see each other tomorrow? If you show up, I'll show up. I always show up. He said goodbye with a wave and left in a hurry. Haley stood watching until he disappeared around the corner. Big company. Boards. Office politics. Who I am. The pieces didn't fit together. Or maybe they fit perfectly and she simply didn't want to see it. That night, Haley did something she'd never done before. She searched Logan Parker Nashville on the computer, and what she found made the floor disappear from under her feet. Logan Parker. Heir. CEO. Estimated wealth of $300 million. Haley stared at the computer screen until her eyes burned. Photos from charity events, interviews in business magazines, lists of Tennessee's most influential businessmen. The man who bought brownies at her stand and couldn't tell chocolate from vanilla was one of Nashville's richest bachelors. She closed the computer and didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Haley set up the stand on autopilot. She organized the sweets, adjusted the prices, smiled at customers. Everything mechanically, while her mind repeated the same questions. Why didn't he tell her? What did he want with her? Was it all a joke? Logan showed up at 2 in the afternoon as always, but this time Haley didn't smile. Hi, he said, stopping in front of the counter with his usual smile. Hi. The tone was cold. Logan noticed immediately. Is everything okay? It is. You don't seem okay? I said it is. He was silent for a moment, studying her face. What did I do? Nothing. Haley? Nothing, Logan. Everything's fine. But it wasn't, and he knew it. You found out? He said quietly. It wasn't a question. Haley crossed her arms. Found out what? Who I am, what I do, the rest. The silence between them weighed like lead. Why didn't you tell me? She finally asked. Logan sighed, running his hand through his hair. Because I wanted you to know me. Not the name, not the money, not the company. Just me. And who are you exactly? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Haley let out a humorless laugh. That's very philosophical for someone worth $300 million. You looked up the exact amount? It was in the first search result. At least you were efficient. I'm not joking, Logan. I know. He approached the counter, his voice lower. And I understand if you're angry. I should have told you. But every time I opened my mouth to say it, I thought about how you'd react. If you'd think everything was a lie. If you'd think I was having fun at your expense. And weren't you? No. The word came out firm, almost desperate. Haley, I come here every day because it's the only place where nobody expects anything from me, where I can just be a guy buying sweets and trying to make an incredible woman laugh. With very little success, I might add. Hey, you laughed a few times. Out of pity. Lie. Maybe. The corner of Haley's mouth curved slightly, almost against her will. Logan saw the opening and took it. Can I tell you something? He asked. Depends. Is it another millionaire revelation? No, it's just the truth. Haley hesitated, then nodded. Logan took a deep breath. I inherited the company from my father. He spent his entire life building it, and before he passed away, he made me promise I'd take care of everything. The employees, the projects, his legacy. He paused. I was 23 years old. I had no idea what I was doing, and even today sometimes I still don't. Haley stayed silent, listening. Everyone looks at me and sees the name, the money, the success, but inside, I'm constantly trying not to disappoint a man who isn't even here anymore to see it. Logan looked at her. This isn't an excuse. It's just context. Why are you telling me this? Because you asked who I am, and that's the most honest answer I have. The moment hung suspended in the air. Haley felt something move inside her chest, a wall she'd built starting to crack. I carry things too, she said, surprising herself. My grandmother raised me by herself. When she got sick, I dropped out of college to take care of her. This stand was her dream. I promised I'd keep it alive. And you have. I'm trying. Every day. Logan smiled, a smile that was genuine and sad at the same time. Look at that. Two strangers carrying promises to people they love. It's poetic. Or tragic. Maybe both. They stayed in silence for a moment. But this time the silence was different, lighter, more intimate. I should have told you sooner, Logan said. Sorry. You should have, but I understand why you didn't. So we're okay? We're working toward okay. I can accept that. The atmosphere between them softened, and Haley felt her defenses drop a little more. Maybe she judged too quickly. Maybe he was more than the name and the numbers. But then a nearby customer's phone rang loud. Did you see the news? The man said to whoever was on the other end of the line. Parker Technologies is closing the Franklin factory. 400 jobs, it's everywhere. Haley turned her head. Logan froze. Is that true? She asked. I don't know. I didn't authorize anything like that. The man continued talking on the phone, loud enough for everyone to hear. They say it was the CEO's decision. Logan Parker. Seems like he doesn't care about workers, only profit. Haley looked at Logan. His face was pale. I need to go, he said, already grabbing his phone. I didn't. Go. He ran off, leaving Haley alone with the murmurs of the customers around her. Across the street, Evan Brooks watched the scene with a discreet smile. Next to him, his phone showed a message from Brad Sterling. Worked perfectly. Haley closed the stand early that day. Sitting in the back of the bus, heading home, she looked at the window and thought about everything she'd discovered in the last 24 hours. Logan was rich. Logan was powerful. Logan was at the center of a decision that affected hundreds of families, and she was a candy vendor who could barely pay rent. Different worlds rarely mix without consequences. Evan's words echoed in her mind like an alarm. For the first time, Haley wondered if she could handle Logan Parker's reality. Logan spent the entire night at the office trying to put out a fire he hadn't even started. The news about closing the Franklin factory was on every website. Furious comments on social media, boycott threats, desperate employees giving interviews. And at the center of it all, his name, Logan Parker. The heartless CEO who destroyed jobs to increase profits. The problem was he'd never authorized it. Brad, Logan said, entering the chief operating officer's office at 6 in the morning. What did you do? Brad Sterling was sitting behind his desk, drinking coffee with the calm of someone who had nothing to hide. I did what needed to be done. You leaked a decision that wasn't even approved. It was a strategic projection. The market needed to know we're considering options. 400 families woke up thinking they're going to lose their jobs. It's the cost of doing business. Logan felt his jaw lock. I didn't authorize this. You also weren't available to discuss it. Brad tilted his head with an almost imperceptible smile. You've been too busy with other things. The implication was clear. Logan knew Brad was provoking him, but had no way to prove it. Fix this, Logan said, his voice low and firm. Today. Fix what? The truth? The lie you spread. Brad shrugged. I can issue a clarification statement, but the damage is already done. People believe what they want to believe. Logan left the office before doing something he'd regret. On Broadway, Haley was setting up the stand with automatic movements. She hadn't slept well. Her thoughts went in circles, always coming back to the same point. Logan Parker, CEO, heir, millionaire. She'd spent her entire life avoiding complications. Hard work, simple goals, feet on the ground. Her grandmother's stand was her world, and that world made sense. It had clear rules, visible results, problems that could be solved with effort and dedication. Logan was the opposite of all that. You look tired. Haley turned and found Evan standing on the other side of the counter, holding 2 cups of coffee. What are you doing here? I brought coffee. He extended one of the cups. I thought you might need it. Evan? No ulterior motives, just coffee. Haley hesitated, then accepted the cup. It was hot and smelled good. Thanks, she said, unable to hide the suspicion. I saw the news yesterday, Evan commented casually, leaning against the counter. About the factory. Everyone saw it. Must be hard to find out that kind of thing about someone you're getting to know. Haley looked at him. What do you mean? Nothing. Just that, sometimes people aren't who they seem to be, and it's okay to realize that before you get hurt. I'm not hurt. Not yet. The word hung suspended in the air. Haley took a sip of coffee to avoid having to respond. I'm not trying to create problems, Evan continued, his voice soft. I'm just worried. You've always been independent, strong, in control of your choices. His world is different. It has rules you don't know, games you don't know how to play. And you know them? I know enough to know that people like us don't belong to it. Haley felt a tightness in her chest. Evan's words echoed thoughts she herself had had the night before. I need to work, she said, stepping away from the counter. Of course. Evan took a step back. Just think about what I said, okay? You deserve someone from your world. Someone who understands your life. He said goodbye with a wave and disappeared into the crowd. Haley stood looking at the coffee cup for a long moment before throwing it in the trash. Logan showed up at 3 in the afternoon. He'd traded his suit for a simple t-shirt and jeans, as if trying to seem more normal. More accessible. Haley noticed the effort. She didn't know if it annoyed or touched her. Hi, he said, stopping in front of the counter. Hi. How are you? Busy. Can I help? You know that every time you try to help, something goes wrong. I've gotten better. Are you talking about the crooked awning? I'd call it artistically inclined. I'd call it defective. Logan smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. Haley, about yesterday. You don't need to explain. Yes, I do. That news, I didn't authorize it. It was an internal maneuver. Someone is trying to hurt me. Someone who? I'm still finding out. Haley crossed her arms. And when you find out, what changes? What do you mean? Logan, you're the CEO of a giant company. Decisions that affect hundreds of people go through you. That's not going to change just because you find out who leaked the story. I know, but I can control how I respond. Can you? The question was genuine, not sarcastic. Logan noticed. I'm trying, he said. Every day, I'm trying to be someone different from what they expect me to be. And who do they expect you to be? The cold air, the ruthless executive, the guy who makes tough decisions without blinking. And you're not that. I don't know. Sometimes I think I am. Other times, I think I'm just pretending to survive. Haley felt her defenses waver. There was something honest in that confusion, something she recognized in herself. Logan, she said, her voice softer. I liked you, really, but I don't know if I can be part of that world. You don't need to be part of the world, you just need to be part of my life. What if one thing comes with the other? Then we'll figure out together how to deal with it. Figure out how? I don't know yet, but I'm willing to try. Logan's phone rang. He looked at the screen and sighed. It's the office. Again. Answer it. It can wait. Logan, answer it. I'm not going to run away. He answered, stepping away a few paces. Haley watched as he spoke, his body tense, his responses short and frustrated. That was his world. Constant calls, endless crises, pressures she couldn't even imagine. When Logan hung up, his face was more tired than before. I need to go back, he said. Emergency meeting with the board. Go. Will I see you tomorrow? Haley hesitated. Evan's words came back to mind. Different worlds, rules she didn't know, games she didn't know how to play. Logan, she said slowly, I think I need a few days. He blinked, confused. Days for what? To think about all of this. About us. Haley, it's not a no, it's just a pause for me to understand what I'm feeling. Logan was silent for a moment. His expression was that of someone trying not to fall apart. Okay, he said finally. I understand. You do? No, but I'll pretend I do because you need space and I need to respect that. Haley felt her heart tighten. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. He tried a smile. I might show up here tomorrow anyway, by accident, passing by. Logan, it was a joke, a bad joke, but still a joke. It was terrible. I know, I'm nervous. I noticed. They stood looking at each other for a moment, and Haley felt the urge to take it back. To say she didn't need time, that everything was fine, that they could figure it out together. But she couldn't. Go to your meeting, she said. Okay. Logan took a step back, then stopped. Haley? Yes. Regardless of what you decide, I want you to know that these days with you were the best I've had in a long time. Even with the dropped cupcakes and the crooked awning. Haley laughed. Despite everything, artistically inclined, exactly. He turned and walked down Broadway, his shoulders more curved than when he arrived. Haley stood watching until he disappeared around the corner. That night, Logan returned to an empty apartment. He sat on the couch, looked at the ceiling, and tried to understand where he'd gone wrong. He had money, power, influence. He could buy anything he wanted, but the only thing he really wanted was asking for time to think about whether she wanted to stay. And for the first time in his life, Logan Parker had no idea how to fix it. 3 days without Haley. 72 hours. Logan knew because he was counting. Pathetic? Definitely. But he'd already passed the point of caring about dignity. On the morning of the first day, he woke up at 5, went to the gym, and ran on the treadmill until he almost passed out. On the second day, he reorganized the entire office, including drawers he hadn't opened in 2 years. On the third day, he tried cooking for the first time in his life and almost set the kitchen on fire making scrambled eggs. Clara, his assistant, walked into the office and found Logan staring at a spreadsheet as if it had offended his entire family. "Mr. Parker, is everything okay?" "It is." "You've been looking at that spreadsheet for 40 minutes. I'm analyzing it. It's upside down." Logan looked at the screen. It really was. "It's a new technique," he said. "Inverted analysis." "That doesn't exist." "It does now. I just invented it." Clara sighed and placed a cup of coffee on his desk. "Do you want to talk about what's going on?" "Nothing's going on. You misspelled your own name on a document signature yesterday. It was a typo. You signed by hand." Logan picked up the coffee and took a long sip, avoiding her gaze. "It's just stress," he said finally. "A lot going on." Clara nodded, clearly not believing him, but too polite to insist. "The board meeting is in an hour. Brad Sterling is already in the conference room." The name made Logan freeze. He arrived early? He arrived 2 hours ago. He's preparing a presentation. What presentation? I don't know. He didn't want to share. Logan felt an alarm go off in his mind. Brad never prepared anything without ulterior motives. "Thanks, Clara. You can go." She left, and Logan stood staring at the coffee cup as if it could give him answers. On the other side of town, Haley was organizing the stand, trying not to think about Logan Parker. It wasn't working. Every chocolate cupcake reminded her of him biting into one with frosting on his nose. Every customer who paid with large bills made her think of the change coins he must still have in some pocket. Even the awning, perfectly aligned now, seemed wrong without the artistic tilt he'd created. "You're sighing again?" said Mariana, the neighbor who sold handmade jewelry at the stand next door. "I'm not. That was the 4th sigh in 10 minutes. I'm counting." "Why are you counting?" "Because it's more interesting than selling earrings." Haley rolled her eyes but couldn't argue. "Is it about the handsome guy who used to come here every day?" Mariana asked, moving closer. "How do you know he's handsome?" "Because you sighed every time he arrived too." "But those were happy sighs. These are sad sighs." "They're not sad sighs. They're sighs from someone pretending they don't miss someone." Haley opened her mouth to deny it, but the words didn't come out. "It's complicated," she said finally. "Love always is. It's not love." "Are you sure?" The question went unanswered. At Parker Technologies, the board meeting started at 10 o'clock sharp. Logan entered the room and found Brad already standing, controlling the presentation as if he owned the place. "Logan," Brad said with a cordial smile. "Good that you could join us." "I work here, Brad. Hard not to show up. Lately, you never know." The board members exchanged glances. Logan ignored it and sat at the head of the table. "What's today's agenda?" he asked. "Operational restructuring," Brad replied, advancing the slide. "We have some interesting proposals to discuss." The presentation was a calculated disaster. Each slide showed Logan's decisions out of context, numbers manipulated to look worse than they were, and veiled suggestions of incompetence. Brad wasn't accusing directly, but the message was clear. Logan was distracted, absent, and the company was suffering because of it. "These projections are wrong," Logan interrupted on the 5th slide. "They were based on official reports. Reports that you prepared yourself. Reports that reflect reality. Reports that reflect your version of reality." The air in the room grew tense. The board members watched as if they were watching a tennis match. "Logan," said one of the older directors, trying to calm things down. "Maybe it would be better to review the data calmly before drawing conclusions." "I agree," Logan said, without taking his eyes off Brad. "Let's review." with the real numbers this time. Brad kept his smile, but something hardened in his gaze. As you prefer. The meeting ended without clear resolution. Logan left with the feeling of having survived an ambush, but knew it was just the beginning. Back in his office, he started reviewing old documents. Brad's reports, internal emails, decision records. Something didn't add up. The problems had started exactly when he met Haley. The pressures, the leaks, the staged meetings. Coincidence? Logan didn't believe in coincidences. He opened the communications history and started looking for patterns. Emails from Brad to departments that weren't part of his area. Meetings scheduled at strange times. External contacts that didn't appear in official records. And then he found it. An email from Brad to an unknown address, sent 2 weeks earlier. The subject was vague. Requested information. The content was encrypted, but the time of sending coincided exactly with the day the factory news leaked. "What are you up to?" Logan murmured to the screen. On Broadway, the day was ending. Haley closed the stand early, without energy to stay until the end. Mariana appeared beside her as she put away the last items. "Are you going to call him?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I asked for time. It would be contradictory. It would be human." Haley stopped putting things away and looked at her friend. "Mariana, you don't understand. His world is completely different from mine. Companies, boards, decisions that affect hundreds of people. I sell sweets on the street. How can this work? The same way anything else works, with effort, patience, and a lot of stubbornness. What if it's not enough? What if it is?" The question hung in the air as Haley finished closing up. That night, Logan stayed at the office late, connecting dots that seemed increasingly clear. Brad was sabotaging. That was obvious now. But there was something more. Someone was feeding Brad personal information. Details about his routine, about where he spent his afternoons, about who he was seeing. Someone who knew Haley. Logan picked up his phone and searched for the name he'd heard weeks ago, at the stand. Evan Brooks. A quick search revealed what he needed to know. Evan was a real estate agent, Haley's ex-boyfriend, and, according to social media, had connections with people in Nashville's business community. Connections that included participation in events where Brad Sterling also appeared. Logan leaned back in his chair, processing the information. It wasn't paranoia. It wasn't coincidence. It was coordinated sabotage, and now he knew exactly where it was coming from. Logan entered Brad's office without knocking. The door slammed against the wall with a bang that made the chief operating officer almost spill his coffee. "We need to talk," Logan said, closing the door behind him. Brad quickly composed himself, adjusting his tie with forced calm. Usually people schedule meetings for this. Usually people don't sabotage their own colleagues. The silence that followed was heavy. Brad studied Logan for a moment, as if calculating his next move. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. The manipulated reports, the leak about the factory, the meeting staged to make me look incompetent. Paranoia isn't a good characteristic for a CEO. Evidence isn't paranoia either." Brad tilted his head, the smile never leaving his face. "What evidence? Emails, communication records, interest in connections with people who shouldn't have access to internal information. Connections like who?" Logan took a step forward. "Evan Brooks. Does the name sound familiar?" For the first time, something wavered in Brad's gaze. It was quick, almost imperceptible, but Logan saw it. "I have no idea who that is." "Strange, because you appear together in at least 3 events in the last 6 months. And coincidentally, he's the ex-boyfriend of the woman I was seeing when all these problems started." Brad stood up, adjusting his jacket. "Logan, you're clearly under pressure. Maybe you need a few days off. What I need is for you to stop sabotaging me. I'm not sabotaging you. I'm doing my job. Your job is to bring me down? My job is to make sure the company works. If you can't do that, someone has to." The two stared at each other for a long moment. Logan knew he wouldn't get a confession there. Brad was too slippery, too calculating. "This isn't over," Logan said, turning to leave. "I agree," Brad replied behind him. "It's just beginning." On Broadway, Haley was having the worst sales day of the month. It wasn't the sweet's fault. It was hers, because she couldn't smile at customers, because she mixed up orders, and because she spent 20 minutes staring at nothing while a line formed. "Miss my brownie?" a customer asked for the 3rd time. "Sorry." Haley grabbed the wrong brownie, switched it, dropped the napkin, grabbed another. Here you go. The customer left muttering something about service. Mariana appeared beside her. You need to fix this. Fix what? This situation with the mysterious guy. You're a disaster. I'm not a disaster. You just charged $5 for a $3 item. Haley looked at the cash register. She really had made a mistake. The customer didn't complain, because you also gave too much change, so it evened out. It was chaotic. Haley sighed and sat on the stool behind the counter. I don't know what to do, Mari. I asked for time to think, but I can't think about anything but him. Then go talk to him. And say what? That you missed him, that you want to try, that he has beautiful eyes, anything. He has beautiful eyes? I don't know. I never paid attention, but you clearly did. Haley laughed despite everything. You're terrible. I'm honest, there's a difference. At that moment, a familiar figure appeared in the crowd. Haley felt her heart race before even recognizing the face. Logan stopped in front of the stand, hands in his pockets, the expression of someone who didn't know if he'd be welcome. Hi, he said. Hi, she replied. Mariana looked from one to the other and smiled. I'm going to go check on some things that don't exist. I'll be back in an hour. Or 2, maybe 3. She disappeared before Haley could protest. The silence between them stretched for a few seconds. Logan was the first to break it. I know you asked for time. I did, and I respected it. For 4 days. Technically, 3.5. This morning still counted as part of the 3rd day. That's your defense? It's the only one I have. Haley crossed her arms, but the corner of her mouth curved. Why are you here, Logan? Because I found out some things. Things you need to know. What kind of things? Logan looked around, checking if anyone was listening. Not here. Can we talk somewhere else? I'm working. After work? Haley hesitated. Part of her wanted to say no, keep her distance, protect her heart. But another part, the part that had missed him every second of the last few days, won. There's a coffee shop 2 blocks from here. Closes at 8. I'll be there at 7. 7:30. I need to close the stand. 7:30 then. He smiled, and Haley felt something loosen in her chest. Logan? Yes? You look terrible. Thanks. That's the look I was going for. It worked. He laughed and walked away, and Haley realized she was smiling for the first time in days. At 7:20, while putting away the last items from the stand, Haley heard a familiar voice. I thought I'd find you here. Evan approached with his usual smile and hands in his pockets. What do you want, Evan? Just came to see how you are. I heard you've been working too much. Heard how? Nashville is a small town. Haley finished closing and looked at him. You show up a lot for someone I broke up with 8 months ago. I care. You meddle. Are those different things? Very. Evan took a step closer, lowering his voice. Haley, I know you're seeing that guy, Logan, and I know he's not who he seems to be. You don't know anything about him. I know more than you think. Something in his tone made Haley stop. What do you mean? I mean that powerful people have secrets, and sometimes those secrets hurt the people around them. Evan, just say what you want to say. He opened his mouth to respond, but Haley's phone rang. A message from Mariana. Girl, you won't believe what I just found out. That ex of yours, Evan? I saw him talking to a guy in a suit last week. Thought it was strange and took a photo. Just looked him up. The guy is Brad Sterling, from Logan's company. Haley read the message twice, then looked at Evan. Why were you talking to Brad Sterling? Evan's smile disappeared as if someone had turned off a light. Haley held her phone with the photo on the screen, her eyes fixed on him, waiting for an explanation that made sense. But deep down, she already knew that no explanation would be good enough. Haley, I can explain, Evan said, taking a step forward. So explain. It's not what it looks like. What it looks like is that you were talking to the chief operating officer of Logan's company, the same Logan you spent weeks warning me to avoid. What exactly isn't what it looks like? Evan ran his hand through his hair, visibly nervous. I know Brad Sterling from business events. Nashville is a small town. People cross paths. And coincidentally, you crossed paths exactly when Logan started having problems at work? That has nothing to do with me. Evan? Okay. He sighed, letting his shoulders drop. Okay, I talked to Brad about Logan, but it was to protect you. Protect me from what? From him. From a guy who appeared out of nowhere, full of money, trying to impress you. Don't you think that's strange? What I think is strange is my ex-boyfriend investigating my personal life and passing information to strangers. Brad isn't a stranger. He knows Logan better than anyone. And he told me things, Haley, things about how Logan treats people, how he uses money to get what he wants. And you believed everything without questioning? I believed it because it made sense. Because guys like Logan don't show up in the lives of candy vendors for no reason. The phrase hit Haley like a slap. Candy vendors, she repeated, her voice low. That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. The silence between them grew heavy. Evan tried to approach, but Haley took a step back. I did this for you, he insisted. Because I still care. Because I didn't want to see you get hurt. You didn't do this for me, Evan. You did it for you. Because you can't accept that I moved on. That's not true. Yes, it is, and deep down you know it. Haley put her phone in her pocket and grabbed her purse. Where are you going? Evan asked. To the coffee shop. I have a date. With him. With him? Haley, please. Evan, it's over. Whatever you think you were doing, it's over. Don't look for me anymore. She turned and walked down Broadway without looking back. Her heart was beating hard, a mixture of anger and relief. Anger at being manipulated. Relief at finally understanding what was happening. Now she just needed to tell Logan. At Parker Technologies, Logan was facing his own battle. The boardroom was full. All directors present, Brad at the opposite end, a pile of documents in the center of the table. The atmosphere was that of a courtroom. Logan, said Harold Mitchell, the oldest director on the board, we were called to discuss a proposal for leadership restructuring. Leadership restructuring, Logan repeated. That's a euphemism for what exactly? For a vote on your continuation as CEO. The air left Logan's lungs. He looked at Brad, who maintained a neutral, almost bored expression. Based on what? Recent performance, Brad replied, finally entering the conversation. Questionable decisions, frequent absences, lack of strategic focus. Questionable decisions like the leak about the Franklin factory? That you orchestrated yourself? I didn't orchestrate anything. I just brought relevant information to the board's attention. Manipulated information. Documented information. The directors exchanged uncomfortable glances. Logan realized he was losing ground. Gentlemen, he said, standing up. I understand there have been problems in recent weeks, and I take responsibility for having been distracted, but this restructuring proposal isn't about performance. It's about internal politics, about someone who wants my position and is willing to manipulate facts to get it. That's a serious accusation, Harold said. It's a true accusation. Brad smiled. Logan, you're clearly under pressure. Maybe you need time to recover. Nobody here wants to hurt you. You do, and you've been doing it for weeks. The silence in the room was suffocating. Logan knew he didn't have enough evidence to convince the board there, at that moment. He needed time. I propose a postponement, he said. 1 week to gather complete documentation and present my defense properly. The directors consulted in low voices. Brad maintained his confident smile. I accept the postponement, Harold said finally. But at the next meeting we expect concrete answers from both sides. Logan nodded and left the room before Brad could say anything else. In the hallway, Clara was waiting for him with a worried expression. How did it go? I survived, for now. What are you going to do? Find evidence and hope that 1 week is enough. Clara hesitated. Mr. Parker, can I say something? Sure. That girl from the candy stand, Haley, maybe she can help. Help? I don't know, but you seem more yourself when you talk about her. And sometimes having someone on your side makes all the difference. Logan looked at his assistant for a moment. Thanks, Clara. You're welcome. Now go. You have a date you can't miss. The coffee shop was almost empty when Logan arrived. Haley was already sitting at a table in the corner, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that she clearly hadn't touched. Hi, he said, sitting across from her. Hi. You seem agitated. You look destroyed. Thanks, that's the look I was going for. You already used that joke. I know, I'm out of new material. Haley almost smiled. Logan, I found something out. Me too. You first. No, you. They stared at each other for a moment and then spoke at the same time. Evan is working with Brad. The silence that followed was pure shock. Wait, Haley said. You knew? Found out yesterday. And you? Half an hour ago, Mariana sent a photo. Mariana? My stand neighbor. She saw them talking. Logan let out an incredulous laugh. So we're both being sabotaged by the same team. Apparently so. That's absurd. I was going to say almost impressive. The coordination is remarkable. Haley finally laughed, and Logan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. What do we do now? She asked. I have 1 week to prove Brad is sabotaging me. If I can't, I lose the company. And Evan? He's the piece that connects everything. If we can prove he passed information to Brad, the case gets stronger. Haley nodded, processing. I confronted Evan today. He admitted he talked to Brad, but said it was to protect me. Classic. It was pathetic. That too. They were silent for a moment, their hands almost touching on the table. Haley, Logan said, his voice softer. I know you asked for time, and I know all of this is much more complicated than it should be. But I want you to know that, regardless of what happens with the company, with Brad, with anything, I want you on my side. Even if everything goes wrong, especially if everything goes wrong. Haley looked at him for a long moment. Okay. Okay, what? Okay, I'm on your side. Logan smiled, genuinely for the first time in days. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We still need to expose 2 guys and save your company. Details. Huge details. But details. Logan's phone buzzed, a message from Clara. Just found out Brad scheduled a press conference for tomorrow. Don't know the subject, but it doesn't look good. Logan showed the message to Haley. Looks like we don't have a week, she said. Looks like we have until tomorrow. The press conference was scheduled for 10 in the morning. Logan had exactly 12 hours to dismantle a scheme that had been building for weeks. He and Haley spent the night at the office, surrounded by papers, laptops, and a worrying amount of coffee. Clara had stayed until midnight, helping to organize documents before being sent home. Mariana showed up at 2 in the morning with a bag of brownies and the phrase, "If you're going to save a company, at least eat something decent." I found something else, Haley said, her eyes red from exhaustion. Emails between Brad and an external address. Looks like Evan using a pseudonym. Pseudonym? E. Brooks Consulting. Very creative. He actually put his own last name in the fake name? Apparently intelligence wasn't his strong suit. Logan grabbed the laptop and read the emails. Details about his routine, times he spent on Broadway, information about meetings he'd missed. Everything documented, everything sent to Brad. This is gold, he said. With this, I can prove the connection. But can you prove it in time? I'll have to. The sun rose over Nashville, painting the sky orange and pink. Logan looked out the office window, his body exhausted but his mind strangely clear. Haley, he said, turning to her. Yes? Thank you for all of this. It's not over yet, I know, but still. She smiled, the first genuine smile in hours. You can thank me later, with lots of sweets, and maybe a vacation. Vacation where? Anywhere that doesn't have press conferences or manipulative ex-boyfriends. That eliminates Nashville. That eliminates half of Tennessee. At 9:45, the Parker Technologies lobby was packed. Journalists, cameras, curious employees. Brad Sterling was at the center of the makeshift stage, adjusting his tie with the calm of someone who was sure of victory. Logan entered through the side door, Haley by his side. Clara was waiting for them with a folder full of documents. It's all here, she said quietly. Emails, communication records, the photo Mariana took. I organized it in chronological order. Clara, you're an angel. I know, you can give me a raise later. Done. Seriously? Totally serious. Clara smiled and disappeared into the crowd. Brad stepped up to the microphone at 10 o'clock sharp. The confident smile was in place, his posture impeccable. Good morning, everyone, he began. Thank you for being here. I called this press conference to address important issues about the future of Parker Technologies. Logan watched from the back, his heart beating hard. In recent weeks, Brad continued, we've faced significant leadership challenges. Questionable decisions, frequent absences, and a lack of direction that has concerned the board and shareholders. Murmurs in the audience. Journalists scribbling furiously. It's with regret that I must inform you that the board is considering a change in executive structure. A change that, I believe, will be beneficial for the company's future. Logan took a step forward. Can I interrupt? All heads turned. Brad froze for a second before recovering his composure. Logan, what a surprise. I'm sure it is. Logan went up on stage, feeling the weight of hundreds of stares. Haley stayed in the front row, her fingers crossed. Brad was about to tell a story, Logan said into the microphone. But I think the full version is more interesting. Logan, this isn't appropriate. What's not appropriate is sabotaging a colleague to take his place. But here we are. The silence in the room was absolute. In recent weeks, Logan continued, I've faced a series of problems. Information leaks, manipulated reports, decisions attributed to me that I never authorized. I thought it was coincidence, or my own incompetence. But it wasn't. He pulled the folder of documents from the inside pocket of his jacket. It was sabotage, coordinated, planned, and executed by someone inside this company, with outside help. Brad took a step back. This is absurd. This is documented. Logan handed the folder to the nearest journalist. Emails between Brad Sterling and an external informant. Details about my personal routine, privileged information about internal meetings, strategies to make me look incompetent. It's all there. The journalists began leafing through the documents. Camera flashes went off. Who is the external informant? A reporter asked. Evan Brooks, ex-boyfriend of someone close to me. He provided personal information that Brad used to pressure me professionally. More murmurs, more flashes. Brad tried to regain control. This is a desperate attempt to deflect attention. Logan is clearly under pressure and... Brad. Logan interrupted, his voice calm. There's a photo of you with Evan Brooks dated 3 weeks ago. On the same day the Franklin factory leak happened. Want to explain that coincidence? Brad's face went pale. That was a casual meeting. Casual. At a restaurant 40 minutes from downtown. On the same day as a leak that you yourself admitted to having brought to the board's attention. I didn't admit anything. You did at yesterday's meeting, in front of the entire board. I'm sure they remember. In the audience, Harold Mitchell nodded slowly. The silence stretched. Brad looked around, searching for allies, but found none. This doesn't prove anything, he said, his voice weaker now. It proves enough. The rest, the board and legal department can investigate. Logan turned to the journalists. Parker Technologies will not close the Franklin factory. That decision was never authorized by me and will be officially reversed. The 400 employees who woke up worried can rest easy. Scattered applause began and grew. Logan felt the weight on his shoulders lighten a bit. But he wasn't finished yet. There's one more thing, he said, and the room fell silent again. Logan looked at Haley in the front row. She frowned, confused. In recent weeks, I was reminded of something important, something I'd forgotten in the middle of meetings, reports, and expectations. I'd forgotten who I wanted to be. He paused. My father built this company from scratch. Before he passed, he made me promise I'd take care of his legacy, and I tried. For 6 years, I tried to be the perfect CEO, the ruthless leader, the heir everyone expected. His voice wavered slightly. But at some point, I got lost. I became a title, a fortune, a name on lists of successful businessmen, and not much of me was left. Haley felt her eyes burn. Recently, I met someone who saw me differently. Not as the CEO, not as the heir, not as the number in the bank account, just as a guy trying to buy sweets and failing miserably at seeming normal. Soft laughter in the audience. And that person reminded me that success isn't just about companies and money. It's about who you choose to be when nobody's watching. It's about the people you keep close. It's about waking up every day and feeling that your life makes sense. Logan looked directly at Haley. I don't know what's going to happen with this company. The board might decide I'm no longer fit to lead. Brad might find another way to bring me down. The press might destroy my reputation tomorrow. He took a deep breath. But I know who I want to be, and I know who I want to be with, regardless of the rest. The silence that followed was different. It wasn't tense, it was expectant. Haley stood up from her chair. She walked to the stage, climbed the steps. You just made a declaration in front of 50 journalists? She asked quietly. Apparently so. That was very dramatic. I know, I got carried away. It was also very... beautiful. Really? Don't tell anyone I said that. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed Logan. The flashes went off like fireworks. Applause echoed through the lobby. When they separated, Logan was smiling. Does this mean you forgive me for the secrets? This means I'm willing to keep discovering who you are. Slowly. I can accept that. You better. because you still owe me a lot of explanations, and a lot of sweets. And a lot of sweets. On the other side of the lobby, Brad Sterling was gathering his things in silence. 2 security guards approached, accompanied by a legal department representative. The conversation was brief. Brad left escorted, his confident smile finally erased. That night, Logan received a message from Evan. "I just wanted to protect her. I hope one day you understand." He showed it to Haley. "What do you want to do?" she asked. "Nothing. He's not worth the effort." "I agree." Logan deleted the message and put away his phone. "So," Haley said, settling next to him on the office couch, "what happens now?" "Now I have a meeting with the board tomorrow to formalize everything. Then, probably weeks of investigations, adjustments, reorganization. Sounds exhausting. It will be. And after that," Logan thought for a moment, "after that, I want to take a vacation." "Where to?" "Anywhere you want," Haley smiled. "Anywhere at all?" "Anywhere." "What if I just want to stay in Nashville? Selling sweets on Broadway?" Logan looked at her, surprised. "That would be perfect," he said, "as long as I can keep being your most inconvenient customer. The most inconvenient and the most persistent. It's a title I wear with pride." They stayed silent for a moment, looking out the window at the lights of Nashville. "Logan?" "Yes? Are you really going to stay by my side, even being me? An ordinary candy vendor?" Logan turned to her, his eyes serious. "Haley, you're the least ordinary person I've ever met, and I'll stay by your side for as long as you'll let me." She smiled. "Good. 'Cause I plan on letting you for a long time." "How long?" "I don't know yet, but we'll find out together." 3 months later, Logan Parker did something he'd never done in his life. Took a real vacation. Not the kind of vacation where he brought his laptop and participated in video call meetings. Not the kind where he checked emails every 15 minutes and got anxious about reports he hadn't read. A real vacation. No electronics, no obligations, no one calling him Mr. Parker. The destination? A cabin in the Tennessee mountains, 3 hours from Nashville, with no cell signal and a view that made any problem seem small. "You're shaking," Haley said, watching Logan try to light the fireplace for the 5th time. "I'm not shaking. I'm vibrating with determination." "Looks like shaking." "It's the same thing, just more masculine." She laughed and approached, taking the matches from his hand. "Let me try. You know how to light a fireplace? My grandmother taught me when I was 8. And you didn't think to mention this before? I was enjoying watching you suffer." "That's entertainment." Haley lit the fireplace in less than 30 seconds. Logan stood watching as if she just performed a miracle. "How did you do that?" "Technique and patience. I have patience. You tried to light the match upside down 3 times. Those were experimental attempts. Those were disasters." Logan sat on the couch, defeated but smiling. The fireplace crackled softly, filling the cabin with warmth and golden light. "Thanks for coming with me," he said. "Thanks for inviting me. You hesitated when I asked, because you asked in the middle of a board meeting, by text message. It was urgent, it was inconvenient, but you said yes, because you made a sad puppy face emoji. It worked. Unfortunately." They stayed silent for a moment, watching the fire. Outside, snow began to fall softly. "Logan, yes? I like this." "Like what?" "You. Like this, without a suit, without meetings, without corporate crises. I like it too. It's strange." "Strange why?" "Because I spent 6 years thinking my identity was the company. And now I'm here, in the middle of nowhere, doing absolutely nothing, and I feel more like myself than in any boardroom." Haley snuggled next to him. "Maybe you're more than a title. Maybe. I'm still figuring it out. We'll figure it out together. Promise?" "Promise." The days at the cabin passed slowly, the way good days usually do. They cooked together, with varying results that included a memorable incident with pancakes on the ceiling. They walked on trails covered with snow, built a snowman that Logan insisted on calling Brad just so he could knock it down later, and spent nights talking about everything and nothing until sleep came. On the last night, sitting on the porch with blankets and hot chocolate, Logan asked a question he'd been saving for weeks. "Haley, what do you want?" "For the future, I mean," she thought for a moment. "I want to keep the stand. I want to honor my grandmother. I want to build something that's mine, my way. And beyond that, I want someone by my side, someone who sees me really. Not what I do or what I have, but who I am. I see you. I know, that's why I'm here. Logan took her hand. I want the same things. To build something that makes sense. To have someone by my side. To wake up every day feeling that my life is worthwhile. What about the company? The company is part of me, but it's not all I am. It took me too long to understand that. Better late than never. My new favorite phrase. They returned to Nashville the next day, tanned from winter sun and lighter than when they'd left. 1 year passed. A lot changed. Brad Sterling was formally fired after an internal investigation that revealed not only the sabotage against Logan, but also financial irregularities he'd been hiding for years. The lawsuit was still ongoing, but his career in Nashville was officially over. Evan disappeared from the radar. Rumors said he'd moved to Atlanta, trying to start over away from the scandals. Haley never heard from him again, and honestly, didn't miss him. Parker Technologies prospered. Logan implemented changes his father would probably approve of. More transparency, more investment in employees, less focus on profits at any cost. The Franklin factory not only continued operating, but expanded, creating 200 more jobs. And the candy stand? It grew. Not in an absurd or unrecognizable way. Haley didn't want a franchise or an empire, but she opened a small physical store in a charming alley near Broadway, with sidewalk tables and the same striped awning her grandmother had used decades ago. Logan helped, not with money, Haley insisted on that, but with time, presence, and an impressive amount of manual labor that resulted in more disasters than achievements. You painted the wall pink, Haley said on opening day, looking at the result. It was supposed to be peach. That's bubblegum pink. It's intense peach. It's pink. We can agree to disagree. We can agree that you'll never paint anything again. Fair enough. The store was a success. Customers came from all over Nashville to try the brownies that, according to a local food blog, were good enough to cure any broken heart. Logan made a point of framing that review and hanging it on the wall. You know they were being dramatic, Haley said. I know, but drama sells. You're impossible. It's my charm. On a spring Saturday, exactly 1 year after the press conference that changed everything, Logan showed up at the store with a strange expression on his face. What's wrong? Haley asked, worried. Did something happen? No. Yes, sort of. That's not an answer. I know. I'm nervous. Nervous about what? Logan looked around. The store was full of customers, the buzz of conversations mixed with soft music. Mariana was in the corner, pretending not to pay attention while clearly paying all the attention in the world. Do you remember the day we met? Logan asked. I remember. You tried to buy me with an absurd marriage proposal. Technically, I tried to buy the sweets. And proposed to me as a bonus. It was a joke. It was embarrassing. It was both. Haley crossed her arms, curious. Why are you remembering this now? Logan took a deep breath. Because that day, you told me something I never forgot. You said that not everything can be solved by buying it. And I was right. You were. Completely right. I spent my whole life thinking money was the answer to everything. That if I had enough, nothing could touch me, nothing could hurt me, nothing could get out of control. And then I met you. And I realized that the most important things don't have a price. They can't be bought, negotiated, or acquired. They can only be built. With time, patience, and a lot of stubbornness. Haley felt her heart race. Logan, what are you doing? He got down on one knee. The buzz in the store stopped instantly. All eyes turned to them. Mariana let out a little scream that she would later swear was an involuntary sob. Haley Brooks, Logan said, taking a small box from his pocket. I'm not offering you money or status or an easy life. I'm offering you me. With all the flaws, all the failed attempts to light fireplaces, all the walls painted pink when they should have been peach. It was pink. I still think it was peach. Continue. I'm offering you a partner. Someone who will be by your side on good days and terrible days. Someone who will support you without trying to control you. Someone who learned in the worst way possible that love isn't about possession. It's about choice. He opened the box, revealing a simple, delicate, perfect ring. So, Haley Brooks, candy vendor, owner of the best brownie in Nashville, and the only person who's ever left me completely speechless. You're having plenty of words now. I'm nervous. Let me finish. Sorry. Continue. Will you marry me? Not for money, Not for status, not for any reason other than the fact that I love you and can't imagine my life without you. The silence in the store was absolute. Haley looked at the ring, then at Logan, then at the ring again. You're proposing to me in my own store. I am, in front of all my customers. I am. This is very dramatic. I know. Drama sells. Haley laughed, tears already streaming down her face. You're impossible. You already said that. Worth repeating. So, is that a yes? Haley leaned down, took his face in her hands, and kissed him. The customers applauded. Mariana cried openly. Someone in the back shouted, finally! When they separated, Logan was still kneeling, waiting. Was that a yes? He asked. Because technically you didn't say the word. Yes, Logan, it's a yes. Thank God. My knees were starting to hurt. He stood up and put the ring on her finger. It was perfect, simple, elegant, completely Haley. I love you, he said. I love you too. Even when I paint walls the wrong color, especially when you paint walls the wrong color. On the other side of the store, Mariana raised a glass of lemonade, a toast to the couple, and to the fact that I'll be able to say forever that I saw this happen. Everyone laughed. Logan and Haley looked at each other smiling. So, she said, if I buy all these sweets, will you marry me? Logan burst out laughing. That joke is mine. Now it's ours, like everything, like everything. And there, in the middle of a candy store in Nashville, surrounded by applause, brownies, and the certainty that some jokes only make sense when they become true, Logan Parker and Haley Brooks began the rest of their lives. Together. What did you think of Haley and Logan's story? Do you believe love can arise from a joke? Leave your opinion in the comments. On a scale of 0 to 10, what grade would you give this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive more exciting stories like this one. See you next time.